As I currently listen to Geddy Lee's autobiography, My Effin Life, I'm often reminded of the dude who not only guided me into a deep dive of Rush songs, but also introduced me to bands like King Crimson, who, thanks to his dad, Big Bill, took us to see in concert at Poplar Creek back in 1983, some 83 or 84, probably 83. We talked about how we first met at Huth Junior High School. We were both on the wrestling team. I was in eighth grade. He was in the seventh grade, a year behind me. He talked about how he also played soccer and even baseball in his freshman year of high school. I never knew that. We talked about how we both met when his mom threw a party after the season ended in wrestling in junior high school in their backyard at his house, where I soon learned that he was a kid with a drum set. He talked about how his mom scored the money to buy the drums in a quote unquote pyramid scheme. His words, not mine. Those drums eventually outgrew the size of his bedroom, and it quickly became apparent that this kid could actually play. We talked about all of this, and as one of my oldest best friends from childhood now lives in Brooklyn, New York, he's currently on vacation with his family in a place called Spring, Texas, on the night after Christmas, which is when we had this conversation. We talked about all of these things I just mentioned. However, well, what had happened was, you see, when I pulled up the screen to record the conversation, the screen was minimized and it was hiding the record button, and I forgot to record the first 30 minutes of our conversation. Yeah. So, for the first episode of my podcast, literally starts from the middle of our conversation. So, those of you who wanted to tune in just for a laugh at my expense, Merry Christmas. There's your gift from yours truly. But hey, Swartz was a trooper. He continued on after only slightly busting my chops. And I can summarize our friendship by making an admission that you will actually see for yourself in this episode. As one of my biggest regrets is not continuing to play music with him in particular, instead of going off into the military. Uh, if I'm going to do a podcast talking about music and life, it's a no brainer that I would ask this dude to be my first guest. And of course, as always, he was supportive and he jumped at the chance accepting my invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Swartz.
Guess what?
Now we're recording.
Guess what? I just realized that.
That's the first rule of podcasting. So,
Getting the glitches out the way.
yeah, no doubt. Good thing it's me the first time, no?
Holy shit. I was
Wait, so
the backup too.
that the whole first one that we did, none of that was recorded either?
Nope. I saw the recording button. I'm pretty sure that I did record it, but
Here we go. This is the beginning of your first podcast. I swear I was recording. Like, no, it was so good. Too bad you guys missed it. We'll catch you next week on the Edris Alexis show. What's this called anyway?
So it's called.
Oh yeah, Midnight Bone, baby.
Well, that's
Without the baby.
So that's That's like a nickname of mine online. That some people online know me as, and there's a whole funny little joke about that. I'll have to unload that over time. But so, and I talk about it at another time. But the fact that we're talking about being alive and talking about what we've experienced in our lives, and we're talking about music and particularly acoustic music since I love the acoustic guitar. So I decided to name it after those two themes based on us being alive and acoustic. So alive and acoustic. So those two
Great.
words, live and acoustic.
Well, we're getting into it now. So, man, life in 2024 is not so easy.
What makes you say that? First of all, what makes you say that, and then we'll unpack that a little bit.
Well, I think it isn't just it. Okay, I'm going to try to say this a simple way, direct way, and try not to cover my bases too much and just like say it and have it be a fact. But like, shit is pretty complicated. Mm-hmm. The world is complicated. Globalization makes things complicated. Politics is screwy. And I'm not going to even try to postulate why that is or why we're suddenly seeing it or whether it was possible to ignore or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like worldwide there's a complexity and an urgency that was not evident 40 years ago or 50 years ago, or maybe it was, I don't know. All I'm saying is right now it seems completely impossible to miss and add like this instant mass communication and everything else on top of it. I'm not going to say anything that anybody hasn't been saying like crazy, but like we're going to have to develop some new tools real quick just to communicate with each other, because it's really hard to even get in a conversation with anybody anymore, because like people don't want to find an unknown conclusion. They want to like take a position and defend it, and like that shit's fucked up and it's not resilient at all, and it's not moving the conversation forward, and it's definitely not solving any problems.
We got a lot of people in their own worlds with their earbuds. You go, I'm sure you see it on the trains over there in New York City. You go to, nobody is connected. Everybody's in their phone. I'm sure you've seen it with your two girls, and it's gotta be, sometimes heartbreaking as a parent to be raising kids, especially girls, in the social media age where there could be a room full of kids or, sitting at a table and not one of them are talking to you. They could be behind you, sitting in the car, three in a row, and not one of them is talking to each other. Everyone's got their, heads down looking in their phones. And, you mentioned not only just find a way to communicate with each other, find a way to live too. Like if AI is going to replace a lot of jobs, what's going to be left for some of the humans? Some of the humans are going to have to hit that reset button again in their lives and figure out, what to do.
Well, yeah, and like just think about any resource, just how finite everything is. There's not a single. There's way too many people.
Yeah.
And they want way too many things, and there just aren't enough things to go around. And it's just some harsh reality that there's definitely solutions for if we can find a way to them. But the problem is like, I don't even think that there's a lack of solutions. There's lots of super smart people who've been thinking about solutions for a really long time. The problem is just like getting there.
You mentioned something earlier about the condition of the world and some of the things that are going on. In 1975, when I was in third grade, I had no idea that this country was in a war. Now, could could that be said today of a third or fourth grader? I mean, I bet you every third or fourth grader, whatever altercation this country gets into, by now they'll probably figure it out.
Yeah, yeah,
Have some idea, but I had no idea that we were coming out of a war
yeah. Hmm.
in 1975. So you are right in that aspect, but I'll tell you one thing: that this is a country that seems to be caught up in something every 20 years. Like, it's something major every 20 years. And that was one thing that I noticed about living in Japan, where, especially Okinawa, um, that they they have a time dividing line as one major incident, and that's the war. Was it pre-war or post-war? We can't really say that because we've had multiple wars every 10, 20 years. So
Hmm.
was it pre-war? Well, which war? Iraqi War, Korean War, Vietnam War, so we're always caught up in something, trying to put out a fire someplace. And, it, it's just another way of looking at, at life also. Um, when you were, somebody who's lived in different places, married and I have to recap some of the things that we went over.
No, no, dog.
But being
Let's just keep it rolling.
I will. Being in an international marriage and living around the world and performing around the world like you have, what what were some of your obstacles? What were some of the things that you found like challenging? Again, if you don't want to get into anything, that's
No,
fine.
it's
You don't
all
have to.
good. I just think like I mm, don't feel very educated. Um,
So as a
that was,
mathematician, well, hold on, what was your highest level of math in Central? Or you can go to college if you want to. What was your
oh
highest
whatever.
level of math
That's not
into?
educated. Just having 2 years of calculus, that's not going to educate you.
Here's the calculus that most people would find that as being educated. But I think you're talking about like street life, street or world life, world experience.
Yeah, pulling your head out of your ass is what I'm talking about. You know, um,
I would
getting a
disagree with that.
different, getting a different perspective. And it's the typical thing that I think that um, all these Americans that don't have passports. We live on an island in the middle. We live basically in what feels like a super important island surrounded by two big oceans, and like there's a couple of cultural touchstones somewhere a long way away that we don't really understand. We can't speak their languages anyway, so if we go visit there, we're just the worst kind of tourist anyway. You know what that's like. You learn another language, or you learn something about another culture, or you spend enough time there looking at it with their eyes, and then you see an American show up and you're just like, what the fuck is that? What are they doing? And you're like, oh, that was me not long ago. um,
I remember
and
I was
I don't even want to say just like culturally American cluelessness or whatever, but that was definitely the biggest challenge, was just overcoming that um, super entrenched viewpoint that's really hard to shake. We'll spend the rest of our lives trying to shake it.
it's funny. And talking to you about records and on this point, I was in South Korea one time when I had to go get like a visa situation. Because in order to get your visa situations in Japan at the time, you had to leave Japan, go to another country, and go to. So while I was there, I was in this in a record store in South Korea, mid '90s, and I'm there minding my own business, going through the records and shit, looking at the records, and this other American comes in. So, you know, he comes talking to me. He starts talking to me, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he either said something or did something that pissed off the manager of the record store. And the manager, a Korean person, and apparently the manager wanted him to leave. The dude turned to me and says, "I was just talking to him." I'm like, "Wait a second, don't get me in this. I had nothing to do with this. Whatever you did, you do on your own. I'm chill. I'm cool. Minding my own business over here." And so, yeah, I know that feeling all too well of having lived in Japan for 15 years of my life um, and overseas. Um, but you can't say that though. I don't think that would qualify for you because you are cultured, you are well traveled, and you've experienced a lot of things. Um, are there like now? I know what I would say, knowing you. I think I have an idea of what would be one of your bigger accomplishments. But what would you say is? You tell me what you think be your biggest accomplishment, and I'll tell you what I think you would say.
I mean, it's not easy being married for 30 some years and have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old and not pass on all this generational trauma and, just do all this, either do all the stupid shit that your parents did or try to correct for all the things that your parents did or try to raise kids in a way that makes up for all the things you wish you would have done, all that kind of stuff that's just really dumb. It's very hard not to do that because we're humans. And that, those three women will still talk to me. That's amazing.
That's what I would list your accomplishment, your biggest accomplishment. Your marriage to Sabrina, I think is so cool, and I'm just happy to know her too. And I wish I could, see Argentina just to see where she came from and what it's like um, over there. Um, but you know, we all have um, our obstacles. We all have obstacles. Uh, Mine range from even from being in the Marine Corps. I had some obstacles dealing with the Marine Corps nonsense, um, dealing with life in Japan, dealing with some of the nonsense I got to deal with today, to this day. And it's an ongoing process, and it feels never ending. And so, um, figuring out shit is one of the best um, traits and the best skills we as human beings could have.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's just not something that's taught in school.
Yeah.
I've thought something, and I've thought of this for a long time, and I've never even told you this, but I will tell you this also. I have a couple of regrets. One regret I have is actually finishing high school, because for me, I think school is not for everyone. And for me, I think what they were teaching in school was a great big waste of time for me, for the most part. Uh, I, I loved my chemistry teacher, Mr. Dini. He was a cool dude. I never once used any of the chemistry that I learned in this class. He was a great dude, great teacher. Even knew his daughter, who was a classmate of mine in hoop. So um, some of the teachers that I got to know in high school, great people, really good people. And I would have missed out on football had I dropped out. But if I could have started life earlier, that would have been better for me. Another regret I have, I will tell you, is actually not following you on the course that you were taking because you've lived a hell of a life and you got to experience music for the most part of the 90s in a great time to be in Chicago and be playing music. And I could have been by your side. I could have been there with you at the time. Now, yes, I went to go join the Marine Corps, and that was, you know, that's a great conversation starter, and it was for your country, and that's important. I get the importance of that too. But if I were to look at something that was more geared for me, I would have loved to have been playing music and try to figure out something where I could have fit in some kind of work, even if not as a performer per se, but if I could have learned how to produce or how to engineer or something within those lines. And that's something that you were doing. So that's one of my regrets is, you know, I see the connections and the relationship you've made over the years that have stuck to this time. And that's very admirable. So that's something I've always thought about for a long time.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, goddamn, trying to think about how things would be different. That's really hard to do.
Hard to do. It's
hard when things have already happened.
Right.
That would have been amazing if you were there. But it also, I mean, I always thought like, man, it would have been amazing if I would have left earlier.
The thing is, we didn't know shit. Like, we didn't know. They say, you know, be yourself. Well, you don't know who yourself is. How the fuck do we know? You got to go through shit to find who you are, to be yourself. But at that stage of life, you don't know shit. So what can you do? You're just lost and you're taking advice from lost adults who don't even want to be doing what they want to do and they don't know what's going on, but they're more than happy to bestow their ignorance down upon you. But but again, I didn't know anyone in the music industry. I didn't know anyone, so there was no one that I could go to who knew what they were talking about. I didn't know that, and the fact that, you know, maybe I was practicing in my room and trying to learn licks and do the stupid exercises, on and on, all through, you know, the summers or whatnot, and never being able to play like Eddie Van Halen and shit. I'm thinking that, okay, well, I can't play like Van Halen, therefore I cannot play at all. I have no musical talent at all, because that's what I'm thinking. That's what you see out there that's projected, that the only way you can have a career in music is if you can play to that level. And I was not at that level, but there was no one around me to tell me, well, you can read a little music. Maybe you could compose. You can, you know, you're good with certain electronics. Maybe you could be an engineer, or you're good at arranging music. Maybe you could be a producer. There was no one there to tell me those things. So that would have been very, very beneficial.
That's what they need to be teaching you in school.
I know.
DIY is everything.
Everything. It's for a lot of people. Now, for some people, yeah, sit in rows and that's another thing. We're to 2024 and we're still sitting in rows under, you know, at school.
That's crazy.
The system just needs to change and needs to be updated, where you got kids coming out the wombs with cell phones and whatnot. The age gets younger and younger, and we're still sitting in classrooms. Now, yes, now they have iPads. I guess they're passing out iPads and whatnot these days. But it's still not for everyone. It's for some people, and for those who want to become doctors and lawyers and you want to go into the medical field, yes, by all means, yes, do stay in school. Yeah, don't listen to me. But if you know you don't want to go that route and you're not feeling the beaten path, it's got to be something else. And you always, I've got this whole rant about the school systems and how obsolete it is and just needs to be um, updated.
Maybe you could do that. I mean, that's just something. That's the other thing about DIY is like it's all about just doing something you actually are enthusiastic about. You know what I mean? So if you have an idea, or if you're like, you know what, man, it would be so cool if the kids did this instead of that.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. Like, I don't know where it goes from there or who you rally or how you start, but that's the whole point. If you knew already, it wouldn't be a thing.
Therein lies the problem. You don't know. That's it right there. You don't know. Yeah, if you knew
So
already,
you got to do it. I mean, the finding out is where the finding out happens. You know, that's just so fun to not know.
so are there any goals? And I hate that word goal, but I mean it's kind of overused. But is there something that you're looking forward to doing, and especially now that we're talking, a week before the new year?
Whew.
Whether it's next year in 24 or about that
Let's do this.
damn app keeps cutting out and won't let me send and whatnot. So I was going to ask, yeah, what's on your horizon? What are some of the things you want to accomplish next, whether it's next year or upcoming? What's some of the messages or what do you want to get out there, put out into the world?
Man, I wish I knew what I could put out into the world a little better. I wish I knew. I honestly don't know. Like, I was just thinking through, like, for me, what it's going to be. It's really simple and close to home. Like I need to get my financial shit together.
Another reason why school doesn't do shit for us because they don't break down budgeting. Some of the, I mean, there's a class starting in junior high school called home economics. You learn to they teach you how to sew a pillowcase and make probably, bacon or something. That's about it.
They're not telling you how to negotiate an absolutely screwed up healthcare system.
Cards.
What's up with taxes? Like, how do they actually work? If you're a small business, if you're it's almost impossible to understand. I feel like I've got a pretty good education, but I can't get I'm paying a guy, a CPA, to try to explain it to me. And he's like, you know what? I don't really get it. So what chance do any of us have?
By the way, on that note, a good book to listen to for anyone who's interested.
We're listening to books now, people.
Yeah. I mean, it helps, especially when I'm, spend so much time driving and whatnot. And it's so accessible, so much easier. But The Psychology of Money is a book that I strongly recommend. Like I said, I'm reading Geddy Lee's right now, Geddy Lee's book. But
the links are below.
Yeah, so Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Strongly recommend it. And
what's the most surprising thing you read in there?
In The Psychology of Money or Geddy Lee's book?
In The Psychology of Money.
Psychology of Money, it does a good job in breaking down the American structure of how confusing it could be. But if you figure it out, regardless of what stage you're in, you can be quite wealthy. So it starts off with two people two seemingly completely different lifestyles. One had I think a 7-figure job, but he was just really frivolous with his money and practically ended up penniless. Another had menial labor, and he died wealthy. Mm-hmm. So it's that type of that's how it starts off, but it breaks down and it does a really good job in telling you, well, based on some of the stories that have been passed down to us individually, if you were a person who was taught never to speak about money, don't talk about money. We don't ask about money. You're going to have one aspect of your relationship with money. But if you were raised to build a lemonade stand as a 10-year-old, you're going to have a completely different relationship with money. And it goes on from there. And it does a really good job of showing each of us how different people could look at not just our relationship with money, but how we look through life based on our relationship with money. Because, face it, in this country, if capitalism is fucking you, you're going to have one aspect of life that's not going to be as rosy as a fucking bank CEO.
Yeah. Riding on the train with no dough sucks.
Yeah. Riding on the money train with no dough sucks. It ain't no money train with no dough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't, and it's very, it's very much in layman's terms. It would break it down. It's just an easy sit down and listen. It's an easy listen. And, it's just indicating, listen, if this is our country and this is our system, and it's so complicated that only a few people can understand it, well, no wonder so many of us are, have a different view of life in this country. It's supposed to be, paved with gold. Not for everyone. So you're not alone in saying that. And, as well, you've had, a front row view of my life and some of the things I've put up with. You've been of help to me, many times. You're one person who's been very supportive. There are other people in my life who've been, just living in this city alone, and you live in New York City, so I'm pretty much, preaching to the choir. You got your headaches. It's like you got to go. You're fighting the city on certain things, on things where the city you live in is trying to fuck you. Sometimes is how I feel. Like when your own city is trying to fuck you, damn, Jesus, goodness gracious. Then you got to deal with life on top of all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One day at a time, I guess.
One day at a time.
That's not enough sometimes. That's like hearts and prayers or whatever the hell.
What you got going on for how much longer are you going to stay on vacation?
We're down here until the 30th, whenever that is. What's that? It's up Friday?
I don't even know.
Wait, okay, so today's the 26th, 27.
My screen was minimized a bit before. The 30th is a Saturday.
Yeah.
My screen was minimized before, which is why I did not see the record button. I didn't see it until I expanded it And I expanded. I was like, oh, yeah, that might come in handy. So my bad on that one. And
We
like
got
you were
this.
saying, we are human, which is why we do human mistakes.
Yeah, so but down here the next couple days, again, a lot of family to see, a lot of stuff to do. It's going to be quite fun. And then we get back to the city on Saturday and have a, like a Friendsgiving sort of thing, except for it's everyone's back from Christmas break. So go to our friend's house for New Year's Eve and
And it was
talk.
good. Speaking of Friendsgiving, it was good seeing you on one of my Friendsgiving this past Thanksgiving. It was
Yep,
fun.
always a good time.
Shout out to Catherine and Douglas and the crew.
Yeah, that's a tradition that I don't think is going to die. That's a good one.
Great tradition. Good people.
Now that, I mean, we're done with the pandemics, I hope, for a little while at least.
I've been seeing some people who once again gotten COVID. So far, so good. I
Yeah.
haven't. You were actually one of the first people who I knew who
Yeah.
said that they had it. I was like, oh fuck. This was it went like Tom Cruise. Not Tom Cruise. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was the first one. It went Tom Hanks, and then it was somebody else, and then oh shit, Bill got it. Oh no, Bill.
Yeah, I think, it's obviously still around. People are getting it a lot, but we're just not shutting everything down in the same sort of way. I mean, I don't really know anything about the numbers, and
Person wearing a mask earlier today, outside at a supermarket. But other than that, yeah, I'm glad that chapter has, for the most part, left us. It was a sad chapter, to say the least.
learned a ton of
Um,
stuff.
did you everybody hit the reset button? What was anything that you want to sort of unload and let us know about what you learned?
No, I couldn't even start, but like I like a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was a lot of social change that was happening, or really bubbling up and boiling to a point where, again, like all these things that are piled on our plate, and by our plate, I just mean like the stuff that we can no longer ignore. They don't go away.
No.
There's just more stuff that gets added to them.
Right.
But it just felt like for a while, we were all kind of sharing a meal there for a second. Everybody kind of focused.
Cool.
And I had never been to therapy before. You can imagine, my family, it wasn't really a thing. That was a thing that people in Woody Allen movies did. Like, I personally didn't know anybody ever growing. I don't know about you, but like, I must have been in my 20s.
Well, I've been going to therapy since high school.
No way. Damn.
Not too many people know that.
No, you didn't tell me at the time.
Yeah. I unload that. I'm going to unload that during these little episodes on the podcast. But yeah,
But isn't that crazy? Like, you and I, we've been able to talk about anything our whole life. So what is it that, like, there was stuff you weren't telling me because you thought maybe I don't even know? Who knows?
Parents.
Yeah, totally fucking weird.
You know my parents. You know my family.
I know your parents. Yeah. Both totally sweet to me, and I'm never going to say anything else.
Just different views of how to raise a kid, especially in America. But it wasn't their country, and there were things that, they were fighting through things, and so, but in their fight through things, that affected me also.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was always clear, like, you were the baby. I mean, they called you baby.
Like that.
Nope, I'll never forget that. So that was different too, like I'm the oldest, you're the youngest.
Right.
So that's a
shout out
bit.
to Amy and Andy.
Yep.
Shout out to your siblings.
Hell yeah.
Joanne and Big Bad Bill.
Yeah, so I can't even begin to start telling you what I learned over the pandemic. It was just a mountain of stuff. I don't even feel like the same person, really. I know I am the same, but then that too, like from a philosophical point of view, even what is the self? What am I? Who am I?
As far as career is concerned, because I think that's what a lot of people did, made people look at what they were doing with their lives and to see
Mm-hmm.
like, is this shit worth it? Is what I'm doing worth it? And the people who are lucky enough to work as hybrid, work from home, I envy those people, and that's something I would love to do. But did it make you look at what it is that you want to do for, as a career differently?
Oh God, yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, I don't, man, a career. It's too late for that. Um, but I am working, and I'm trying to build on what I learned, and I'm trying to do good work that people appreciate and don't feel screwed.
Right.
Uh, and I'm lucky enough to have a great partner and people that call us to do things for them. So that's all great. And I can't really remember what it was like when it wasn't like this because the last 3 years at Blue Man were total hell. It was awful.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. What's that?
I'm sorry to hear that, by the way.
No, it just is what it was. Um, but yeah, my personal life too, I just feel so different. And my perspective, I feel like, is quite different than it was. How it feels just to be in my body. I discovered a lot of things at one time, a little bit, and now I live with all of those things, and that's a pretty good feeling. Like if this is what life is like, and if this is what growing up is like, if you just keep getting to add things, it just makes things a little bit nicer. I mean, like, it definitely compensates for your body gets rougher on the body every year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And
How many times have you started to, like wake up and be like, wait a second, what? My body's doing what?
yeah, well, it's just starting to happen. And then you got it right in your face with, what our parents are going through, like those of us who are lucky enough to still have parents and grandparents, whatever. You just see the inevitability of it all. And so it really does help to have this other perspective. Like the way you live in your body is different.
Well, you've been pretty good with that, and especially, your wife cooking you some, y'all are so healthy with your diet. I mean, you are probably the only person I know who can talk about wearing his same gym class uniforms from high school.
Yeah, well,
Still fit. So that's crazy. That shit is crazy.
that just must be some genes or something. But
It takes work too. You got to work at that too. I mean,
thankfully, I just hate ding dongs and shit like that.
there you go. So to lighten it up a little bit more, I'm going to be asking people this one question, and it goes back to the original concept of what I was talking about, the title of the podcast, Alive and Acoustic, where we talk about, acoustic music also in arrangements. But also, I want to find out what was your last concert that you attended. Now, I know I've asked you this many times, but we talk about this a lot. But what was the last concert? Not show, not bar gig, but an established band or act.
Yeah, I know you always say this.
I know.
You're always talking about this, like established bands, not a show. You basically want to just ask me when was the last time I was at the Rosemont Horizon?
Yes, I have to make it clear.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. The the last concert I went to was a legit concert. It was in a theater. There's a balcony. There's like seats. We bought tickets ahead of time. Like people sat down. You could buy
There.
you could buy records at the merch stand and shit.
But was it somebody that most people would know though? That's what I'm saying.
What do you mean most people would know? These days, most people don't know jack shit.
Well, we're also, we're splintered. We're also splintered. So what was the name of the band?
It wasn't a band. It's a guy. His name is Carl Stone.
Okay.
But he's like, well, you know who this is because we were in that music group together.
And you were talking about him that time at Friendsgiving.
Yeah, exactly. He's it was his 80th birthday celebration, and he played 2 nights at Roulette, which is the venue in New York that I go to most often, pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And really great music there, and I thought it was a fantastic show. It was a great show, and that was, I may have been in one since then. That was December 9th.
Just a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think actually I may have gone to one on the 10th too. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so then the next night we went to a concert at Elsewhere in Brooklyn and saw a really good triple bill.
Mm-hmm.
The opener was this young woman out of Chicago named Kaya, and this is Mati.
You got company? Mati, what's up, dear?
Am I interrupting something?
No, this isn't nothing top secret or anything. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, I was just, if you wanted your food, like I can eat your food.
No, I'm not going to eat. But if you guys are having dessert, then I will eat.
Sit on the bowl that heated it up.
Okay, I'll eat it.
So come have some when you're done.
Okay, perfecto. Gracias.
Good to see you, Mati.
Good to see you.
Okay, so yeah, she's really good. You got to check her out. She was really funny. She did everything herself. Really good beat maker. Very powerfully self-confident and just like artistic and doing her own thing. It was very, very good. And then I was blown away by a guy from DC named Quella Chris, who's a rapper, and he had a DJ guy with him who was also singing and rapping, and they've made a record together that just came out this year. And I've been trying to do a deep dive on all the stuff that I can find of his online, none of which yet has been as powerful as his live, just his persona. It was very, I don't know if you know who Reggie Watts is, but he did a lot of like tone modulation and like speaking in a high voice and speaking in a low voice and being very hard and sincere, but then also humorous, almost like from line to line changing. And he was just playing a lot of roles and like getting a lot out of his lyrics and just his persona on stage. You can tell he was just really, really seasoned. I mean, it turns out he's been doing this for a long time. Really, really good. A super strong performer and very, very different than Kaya, who was much younger than him.
Hey, how do you spell that, by the way?
Keiyaa. Keiyaa.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Quella Chris is Quelle Chris, like 2 words. Chris, like just the name Chris. And we were there to see Hailu Mergia, who is an old school Ethiopian jazz.
Nice.
But it was a trio. And the bass player was pretty old school too. But the organ is like this very, you can kind of recognize there's this kind of African jazz that is quite different in rhythmic feel than ours is. And so you have to kind of bathe in the music a little bit before you can understand even what they're trying to do, because it feels so wonky.
Yeah, right.
And same with the drum beats and like the sounds and all the stuff that they're doing. And it was just really, that was really good. So that was the 10th of December. And then from there, yeah, I had to go, I had to work and stuff. And then we had to go traveling here. So I haven't seen anything since then. But
cool.
I'm not going to fall into your trap of like, when was the last time I saw U2 or some bullshit?
It's all right. Hey, listen. I mean, that's why I'm kind of looking for somebody on the bigger stage, but you know, that's who you saw.
Well, what would be the ideal? Like, what would I say if I'm going to try to say of like a concert? That's like such a different thing. I guess this is something to talk about, alive and whatever. Like
Live and acoustic.
I don't understand. I don't get the point of that anymore. You know, like I think that shit was played out. I was thinking about this just in terms of, let's just talk about Rush. Like they were almost over. You know, they didn't feel over, and of course they should. It was worthwhile for them to play shows in stadiums and stuff like that, or arenas once they could headline. But their shows were not better. You know, their shows were best. The best they ever were when they were just getting to be there. You know, like that. The one that I keep going back to watching is that Live at Pink Pop, the festival in Amsterdam in 1979. That's like the greatest. That is them really on fire, really not knowing where things are headed, and they're playing Neil at that point. I read these things in an interview too, because I've gone back. You know, you can see now all of the times that they were ever interviewed are archived online. It's pretty easy to go through and just find out. Like read all the interviews of Alex Lifeson from 1979 to 1981. There are only like 10. And so you can totally see the development of what happened to them when they broke. And it's the same with Neil. And like, he didn't even have them he didn't have monitors. Like, it was just Geddy was so loud and Alex was with his Marshalls. He was just so loud that you didn't need to hear the bass or the guitar. You just
talked about
the
that
fucking
too,
drums.
About the time when monitors came into the mix and like it blew them away practically.
Yeah, and how it changed. Well, a lot of things changed, you know, in their presentation and stuff, and it was not for the better. I think in the end, like I saw them a million times all through that period, and it just kept getting more and more sort of square and locked in and very presentational. And I love those guys and everything. But that's not what I go for music for. I'm not going to see. That's not what I want to see. You know what I mean? I want to see. I want to see people who don't exactly know what it is that they're doing, and they're trying to do it. And you're never going to see that. People taking chances on an arena stage. I mean, those set lists. Even people that I love, like Peter Gabriel, who is a very artistic person and is playing for the stage. And is making a show that can only kind of be contained in a big theatrical setting. It's still the same set list every night.
Geddy Lee mentioned how, because he talked about. Did you know that Geddy Lee broke off and did a solo project with a I believe a violinist, and he talks about how in that solo project it wasn't. This was when Neil took a break. Neil was still with us, but he had taken a break. They weren't sure if they were going to get back together yet. This was the first time. And he talks about how he was in contact with a violin friend of his. And so they went off, and cause he still had things that he wanted to let out musically. So he goes off and, does a project with this violinist. And it's not that he was trying, even though they didn't make Billboard, he didn't try to make the Billboard top 10. They made like top 55 or something like that, which was respectable, but he wasn't gunning for that because he just wanted to put something out there. and it's not as if a solo, like a member of a band breaks out into a solo to become better, because that's not often done. And you didn't mention Peter Gabriel was one of the people who was able to pull off that feat after somebody who was in Genesis and then went off on his own. And it's also mentioned that, so, because what you're saying is that by the time the dryers and washing machines made it onto the stage of Rush, you were out by then.
I mean, 20 years earlier than that, I was out. And it was so obvious. I mean, at this point, really, like, if even those guys can take like some kind of objective measure of artistic, there is a curve. It goes like this. It peaks at a certain point. It's a peak because it's never going to get higher than that. That means, by definition, it's going to get lower.
He even said, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just saying, he even said that there'd be time, like at some point, once you do reach that peak, at some point, it's just going through the motions. And he even found himself, he could be in front of thousands of people singing and performing, but because his mind is someplace else, he's not even there in that concert at that time. I'm about to run out, but thank you, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for doing this. And you're going to be back a couple of times because we're going to get this straightened out, and you got shit to say anyway. And people go,
yeah, well, so we'll figure out the bugs and all that sort of thing. And then, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you with or without this. This has got nothing to do with this, but yeah, so let's talk soon.
Let Marty know that she's going to be in my first podcast, whether she's over it or not. If that's okay with you.
That's awesome.
All right, my man. Appreciate you. Man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
Later.